You order a Coke in Paris, and you get a small glass with maybe 2 ice cubes floating in it. You order the same Coke in Dallas, and you get a bucket-sized cup that's 70% ice and 30% soda. Ask most Europeans about it, and they'll tell you Americans are ruining their drinks, watering them down, wasting the flavor, wasting the money. But here's the thing. This isn't an accident, and it isn't Americans being careless with their drinks. It's the end result of a 200-year-old industry, a genuine war between American and European engineers, and a marketing battle that quietly rewired how an entire country thinks about cold. This is why Americans love ice in everything. To understand why ice became so central to American life, you have to go back before refrigeration existed at all, to a failed businessman named Frederic Tudor. In 1806, Tudor had an idea that everyone around him thought was insane. Cut blocks of ice out of frozen New England ponds in the winter, load them onto ships, and sell them to people in the Caribbean, where it never even snows. His own brother called it a fool's errand. Newspapers mocked him. His first shipment to Martinique arrived, and nobody there had any idea what to do with ice, or why they'd pay for it. Most of it just melted on the dock. It took Tudor almost 15 years, and multiple bankruptcies to figure out the 2 problems standing in his way: insulation and demand. He solved insulation with sawdust, a cheap waste product from New England. Lumber mills that, it turned out, was one of the best insulators available. Packed in sawdust, ice blocks that used to melt in days could survive month-long. Ocean voyages, losing less than half their volume. Then, he solved demand. And this is the part that actually matters for the rest of this story. Tudor didn't just sell ice, he gave it away for free to bartenders, and gave them the idea of iced drinks, to doctors to pack around fever, patients, to anyone he could get to build a habit around cold. Once people got used to iced drinks and cold food storage, they didn't want to go back to lukewarm. By the 1830s, Tudor's company was shipping ice from Boston to India, Cuba, and the American South, earning him the nickname the Ice King. By the mid-1800s, ice had become one of America's biggest exports. And this is the key point. An entire American industry and American culture had been built around the assumption that cold was cheap and abundant. Europe never went through this. Ice there stayed a luxury import for the wealthy, harvested locally in small amounts, mostly used for food preservation, not casual drinking. America, meanwhile, spent half a century building an entire commercial identity around it. Fast forward to the early 20th century, and natural ice harvesting, cutting blocks from frozen lakes, was becoming a real problem. Warm winters meant unreliable supply. Polluted urban rivers made lake ice genuinely unsafe. The country that had built a habit around cold needed a mechanical solution, fast. This is where the United States and Europe split for good. American manufacturers, General Electric, Frigidaire, Kelvinator, treated the home refrigerator as a mass-market race. General Electric's Monitor Top refrigerator, launched in 1927, was aggressively marketed, financed on installment plans, so working families could afford one, and pushed hard through advertising that tied refrigeration to modern womanhood, food safety, and the American dream. By the mid-1930s, refrigerator prices in the United States had dropped by around 60%, and adoption exploded. European manufacturers, recovering from World War I, and dealing with smaller homes, more expensive electricity, and a culture that already ran on. Daily market shopping, instead of bulk storage, were far slower to adopt home refrigeration. Many European households didn't have a fridge until the 1950s or 60s, decades after most American homes did. And this gap matters more than it sounds like, because a full-size fridge with a freezer compartment meant one very specific thing: home ice cube trays. By the 1930s, American refrigerators came standard with metal ice. Trays and making ice became a normal household chore, like doing laundry. European fridges, when they did arrive, were smaller, often without a real freezer section at all, built for keeping food fresh for a day or two, not for producing ice. So while European households were optimizing for freshness, American households were optimizing for storage and cold. And ice cube production became baked into what a normal kitchen looked like. Once Americans had ice at home, the beverage industry noticed and leaned in hard. In the 1920s and 30s, Coca-Cola's advertising began explicitly pairing the brand with ice-cold refreshment, the pause. That refreshes campaign showed working Americans on a hot day, sweating, reaching for an ice-cold Coke as the solution. This wasn't subtle. Coca-Cola was selling temperature as much as flavor. Restaurants picked up on the same idea. For a much more practical reason, cost control. Ice is nearly free compared to soda syrup. A cup that's 70% ice and 30% liquid costs a restaurant a fraction of what a full cup of soda would cost, while still looking generous and full to the customer. Fast food chains built entire drink economics around this. A large fountain drink, mostly ice, lets restaurants offer a big cup at a low price, while protecting their margins on syrup, which is the actual expensive ingredient. Add in America's drive-through culture cars sitting in Texas or Arizona. Heat, drinks that need to stay cold for the 20-minute ride home. And ice stopped being a preference. It became functionally necessary. A drink without much ice in a 100F car ride is warm. Soda, by the time you're home. Meanwhile, restaurant health codes reinforce the habit. American regulations generally require ice used in drinks to come from filtered, treated sources, which ironically made ice in America something people trusted more, not less. In a lot of the world, tap water safety concerns actually made people avoid ice, since it's frozen tap water. In the United States, the opposite association took hold. Ice at a restaurant means clean, safe, cold. To be fair to the European side of this, their skepticism about American style. Ice isn't just stubbornness. There are real arguments behind it. European bartenders and chefs will tell you that too much. Ice genuinely dilutes flavor faster than it needs to, especially in wine, coffee, or a carefully made cocktail. Traditional European drink culture, wine with meals, espresso instead of iced coffee, room temperature or lightly chilled beer in many regions, developed around different climates and different food pairings than American drink culture did. A lot of European countries also simply have milder average summers than most of the United States, especially compared to the South and Southwest, which naturally reduces the practical need for aggressive cooling. There's also a genuine economic angle. Electricity has historically been significantly more expensive in much of Europe than in the United States, which affected everything from home appliance size to how casually people ran refrigeration. So this isn't really a story of America being right and Europe being wrong about ice. It's two regions that developed completely different relationships with cold, refrigeration, and drink culture, based on different histories, different energy economics, and different starting points. 100+ years ago, by the second half of the 20th century, ice wasn't just practical in America, it became cultural shorthand. A restaurant that skimped on ice was seen as cheap. A big gulp-sized fountain drink, mostly ice, became a symbol of American abundance. Bigger is better, more is generous. Home ice makers evolved from simple trays into automatic ice makers, built directly into refrigerator doors, and eventually into a genuine consumer status. Symbol crushed ice versus cubed ice versus the now famous nugget ice or chewable ice. That specific machines, and eventually entire appliance, startups are built around. You can actually track this cultural obsession through recent product trends. Nugget ice makers becoming one of the most gifted. Small appliances in America in the 2020s, entire online communities dedicated to ice culture, and coffee chains building. Massive iced drink menus, even for markets and seasons where a hot drink would arguably make more sense. None of this happened in a vacuum. It's the direct traceable result of Frederic Tudor's ice ships in the 1800s, General Electric's aggressive refrigerator marketing in the 1920s, Coca-Cola's ice-cold advertising, and fast food chains, optimizing drink costs in the back half of the 20th century, each one building on the last, until lots of ice stopped being a choice and became the default expectation. So the next time you're handed a cup that's mostly ice and a little bit of soda, it's worth remembering you're not looking at carelessness. You're looking at 2 centuries of American industry, marketing, and infrastructure, all quietly pointed at the same goal: making cold cheap, abundant, and completely unremarkable. Frederic Tudor spent his whole life trying to convince people that ice was worth paying for. 200 years later, Americans can't imagine a drink without it. Enjoyed the journey? Subscribe for more stories about America's history, culture, business, and the hidden reasons that shaped the nation. Every place has a story,